Hello, sir.
Hello. Hi.
How's it going, man? How's it going, Mr. Joseph Sweden? Sweden, is
Sweden.
that nice? Nice to meet you, man. Nice to meet you. How's it going?
Likewise. And what's your name?
My name is Libiano. You can call me Libiano.
Okay, Libiano. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess this is a defend. It just said defend your religion.
Yeah.
Now the argument you were having with the last guy on Ball, I didn't quite understand the context behind it.
Yeah. So he was arguing that Jesus could have not been a Muslim because Jesus called his God Father.
But Jesus is God for us, and so that's something to keep in mind.
Yeah,
So
I understand that, sir.
Okay.
So his argument was that Jesus called God Father, and therefore he does not qualify to be a Muslim. And I said, well, we don't actually have a problem with Jesus calling God Father, nor the prophets calling God Father, as long as it was said and meant in the correct sense, which the prophets are infallible and they don't say what is wrong about God.
Did any other prophet call him Father?
Of course.
Which one?
Isaiah and Moses.
Okay. Just checking.
Yeah.
Now this was from you had a thing from Hosea, correct?
Yeah, Hosea chapter 2.
So chapter 2. And if we look at the context of that verse, that was 16, I think you said. 2:16.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. And so like we get to the beginning of the chapter and we get to verse 8.
Uh-huh.
And so this is a chapter which is using these the actions of an unfaithful woman as a comparison to the Israelites being unfaithful to God, correct?
That's right.
And so in that we see, chapter, verse 8, so corn, wine, and oil, multiplied silver and gold used in the service of Baal. And then we see, obviously he's issuing a corrective. He's taking away what is rightfully his as opposed to Baal's. Verse 10 is about her unfaithfulness.
Yeah.
And then we get to 13, visiting her upon her the days of Baalim, to whom she burnt incense.
Yeah.
This is, again, these are references to unfaithfulness. So
Right.
my question is, how does verse 16 apply? They weren't supposed to worship Baal. They weren't supposed to call him Baal.
I never claimed that they worshipped Baal.
But they did.
Yeah, I know, and I didn't say that they worshipped. That they thought that God was Baal and that God told them to worship.
But they were praying to Baal. That's the whole point of the chapter.
So why does God say, "Don't call me Baal anymore"?
Because he's not Baal.
So
Baal is a false god.
So they called him Baal.
They literally went to worship false gods.
No, not worship. Not worship. Not talking about that. Did they call the God of Israel Baal?
Okay, what does it matter if they called him the god?
Did they do that or not?
Yeah, they did. They were wrong. That's the whole point.
They're not wrong because
no, they're absolute. The whole point of the prophecy is that they're wrong.
Just one second. We're gonna see about that. Okay.
Yeah. Just go to the first part of the chapter.
Yeah, no, we're not just gonna do that. We're gonna pull it up here in 1 second. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. We're in Isaiah 54:5, where God says.
Why are we moving from Hosea?
To give context.
So the context is in Hosea.
That's right. Well, can you just calm down, sir? Thank you.
I can.
Yeah, so just calm down. I'm just going to read the text, okay? Thank you so much.
I'm calm.
So it says, for your maker...
Like the old ticker.
Yeah, for your maker is your husband. Do you know the word used for husband in the Hebrew?
No, I don't know Hebrew.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you. The word right here is... It's Baal.
Really?
Really? Because Baal.
No. Can you scroll out a little bit?
Yep. There we go. We're in Isaiah. It's used in Genesis and Deuteronomy 22.
All right, let's try this. I realize
that. Here we go. Wait. Mm-hmm. Isaiah 54:5. That's an occurrence. For your husband is your maker. The word is your Baal. So. Okay. God uses the term.
Okay. let's
Yeah,
try this. If I may,
just let me finish my point, please.
Sure.
The point is, God uses the Hebrew term Baal and applies it to himself because the term simply means husband or master in the Hebrew. However, because of its idolatrous association with false deities, he tells the Israelites to not use this name no longer.
Can I? You good now?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know what meat is?
Meat?
Yeah.
Yeah. You
eat meat?
You eat meat. Yeah, I ate meat today.
Have you ever gone to meet with a person to eat meat?
Yeah, I went to meet with a person with a double E. Yeah, that's
right. It doesn't. You see, the thing is, what you're doing is using a homonym to deny the existence.
It's not a homonym.
It is a okay.
It's not a homonym.
A homonym is a similar sounding word,
but it's not. This is not a similar sound.
No. Okay, you cannot deny.
You want me to establish that? Do you want me to substantiate that? You're claiming that this is a homonym. I'm saying no. It's not just a similar sounding word. It is the same word.
Are you saying that there was no Canaanite deity named Baal?
No, you're missing the point. I'm saying the deity is called Baal, and in that context, that's a proper name. But in Hebrew, there is a word that means master or husband. In Hosea chapter 2, God says, don't use this word anymore. Instead, use Ishi. Ishi and Baal mean the same thing in Hebrew. Both of them mean husband or master. But God says, don't use Baal. Don't call me that anymore. Use Ishi. And if we go check the commentaries, it says, because of its idolatrous association, the Israelites were outlawed. Let me finish.
What commentaries?
Just the contemporary commentaries that we have.
I know commentaries.
I know you're Orthodox, so maybe you don't like that. But
no, don't respect it at all.
That's besides the point.
I'd like to get back to chapter 2 because what I'm seeing, there's no evidence.
Just one second, Father Joseph. What are you arguing here exactly? Because it seems like we're on the same page. I don't know what you're pushing back on.
Well, my point is that in Hosea, he's literally talking about the people worshiping.
What do you think I'm arguing?
I think you're trying to argue basically that because the generic term Baal can have a meaning that can be discarded because of associations with it, that is part of the reason why father was not a preferred term by the prophets, even though
I didn't say that. Yeah, so you're missing my point. I didn't say father is not a preferred. I didn't say that. I said just as terms could be outlawed, although they have a correct meaning, because Baal in Hebrew just means master or husband, and God uses the term for himself. I'm your husband. I'm your Baal. Although the term has a correct meaning, just wait. The term is outlawed. Similar to father, the prophets used father, but the term, because of your idolatrous usage of it, was later outlawed by the Prophet Muhammad.
Okay. Oh, I see.
Yes.
No, I would say that usage has not been terminated. But since you are you're going by the teachings of the prophet, etc. Yeah. I'd love to get back to Hosea because that verse is very interesting in its translation.
Well, I just told you what it like. You're not even understanding it, but you think I'm saying something else. I'm saying similarly to what you have there, how God says, "Don't call me Baal." God says, "Don't call me Father anymore."
Right, and what I would say is A, that's wrong, and B, on verse 17 of that same book. Of that same chapter, it says, I will take the names of Baalim out of her mouth, and she shall no more remember their name.
That's right.
This implies that we're talking about a name. We're not talking about a descriptive term.
Yeah. Sorry, you're missing the point. So the term in the Hebrew Baal, is not a name. But because
it is in this case a name.
Yeah, in the case of false deities. But I'm saying because that name coincides with the Hebrew term that the Israelites used for God to call him their husband. Okay,
that's not what they were doing. They were worshiping false gods.
Sir, does he say don't call me Baal anymore? Yes or no?
He says, I will take the names of the Baalim out of her mouth, and she shall remember them no more.
In verse 16, does he say,
this is verse 17.
Wait, does he say, don't call them Baal? Does he say, don't call me Baal?
He says, she will no longer call me Baal because they were worshiping falsely.
Okay, were they calling the God of Israel Baal or a false deity Baal?
They were worshiping another deity and calling it the God of Israel.
Good. So why does he say, no longer call me Baal?
Because in earlier verses, they were worshiping false gods.
Okay, so the God of Israel is the false God they were worshiping?
No, you keep saying that, but that's not what it says.
So then why does he say, don't call me Baal?
Because they don't exist. They're dead. So the only person they're praying to, that's my point. The only person that they're praying to is him, despite the fact that they're trying to worship false gods.
Good. So the false deities they're worshiping is the God of Israel.
No. He's saying that they are wasting their sacrifices on false gods and must return to him.
Right. So he says, no longer call me Baal, instead call me Ishi, right?
He doesn't. But he didn't say Ishi here. But the whole point is
he does say Ishi in the Hebrew.
Okay. Well, then we can look at the Hebrew. But the whole point is, the whole point of this is that it is not about them using the wrong name for God.
It is, because he says, don't call me Baal, instead call me Ishi.
I hate to be obtuse on this point, but the whole point is not that they were calling him the wrong name, but that they were worshiping the wrong God.
Okay. So in worshiping the wrong God, he said, guys, don't use Baal for the wrong God. Instead, use Ish for the wrong God. Correct?
I feel like the personal relationship that he has with his people is being missed on you. Like he's not like offering divine instructions to worship the right God.
You're just not answering the question. He says,
well, no, it's because you're giving a false dilemma.
Yeah. So he says, don't call me Baal. What you're saying is, well, because they were worshiping false deities and really they don't exist, so they were calling him Baal. Correct?
Well, the false deities are demons, if we're going to be honest, but they're not gods.
Okay, good. So when he says don't call me Baal, he's not actually referring to himself, right?
No, because they're worshiping, probably they were using the same worship with the wrong names.
Good. So he's not referring to himself. Check this out. The rest of the verse, instead call me Ishi. So he's saying, instead call the false god Ishi?
That she shall call me my husband and call me no more Bali. You vanished. You said, let's look at this. Now you're like disappeared.
Give me a second. I'm gonna get it.
Okay, yeah, take your time. Take your time. Everything all right? Something happened? Uh-oh. Just reading the comments, guys. Something happened to the camera. Maybe it needs to just be. Sometimes the plugs get loose. Trust me, I understand completely. Things like this happen. It's just, they happen. We'll be back soon. There it is. See, it's working again. All right. Welcome back.
All right, let's make this quick because I got somewhere to go. But.
All right, can I ask my question?
Yeah, sure. So, but remember, you got caught because you said...
I didn't get caught.
You did, because you said they're worshiping him. He's saying, when he says, don't call me Baal, that's not actually referring to him. But then he says, instead, call me Ishi. So then the false god that the worship.
Yeah, my husband, right.
So but call the whole false god husband, right?
No, he's the real God. That's why he's talking.
So then he's referring to himself. Then he is talking about himself.
But he's saying that the people are worshiping the wrong God.
He says, like, "Don't call me Baal." So he's the wrong God.
I highly recommend everyone just read the whole chapter.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, anyways, what's your question?
My question is: I know that there are verses in the Quran that deal with the You're gonna have to correct how I say it. The Injil.
Yes.
Okay. Like I know that like we're referred, like we the Christians are referred to the Injil in the Quran. Like we have to go back to the Injil to understand. Correct?
What do you mean go back to the Injil?
Well, that's what the verse says. Something like go back to the Injil and the Torah for understanding.
It says that the people of the book shall judge by what Allah has revealed therein and what has come to them.
Yes, there we go. Perfect. Yeah. So, which one? There's four Injils in the New Testament. Well, it's the Injil according to each one. So those are good for understanding. If I understand that, I'm good with like Islam.
No, yeah. So, like our earliest exegetes say, that's referring to the jurisprudence rulings that are given by Christ, as long as they don't contradict the Quran, because what follows the verse is, and what has been revealed to you from your Lord. So you are to observe the Torah, the Gospel, and what has been revealed to you from your Lord, the Quran. The Quran's authority over the Gospel and the Torah, just like Christ was an authority over the Torah. And so you are to follow the Torah, the teachings of the Pharisees, like he says in chapter 23. But when Jesus disagrees with their interpretation, you're to follow the interpretation of Christ. So Christ has
right. Okay, so following with the Torah, you have to follow the interpretation of Christ. Okay,
right. And let me. So it sounds like you got the last half and not the first half. So when you follow the gospel and the Torah, this is referring to min bab al-amr wa nahi. So regarding its rulings on jurisprudence, as long as they're not abrogated by the Quran.
The Quran abrogated some of the rulings of the gospel?
Yeah, just like Jesus abrogated some of the rulings of the Torah.
I don't know that he abrogated it, but that's beside the point.
Yeah, he did. Let's go through them right now. Can you
sure.
divorce? Can you divorce?
You're not supposed to, no.
Yeah, you're not supposed to, but can you?
For adultery.
Oh, okay. But outside of adultery, can you divorce?
No.
Okay, in the Torah, can you divorce?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so he abrogated it.
Well, he didn't abrogate it. He actually stated that was
definition of abrogation.
Well, no, I would disagree. I would say, well, can we go to the verse in the
before we go to the verse, abrogation is when something is permissible at one point and later it is no longer permissible.
Right.
Did that happen?
No.
So it was never permissible to divorce?
Right. If you read what Christ said there, can we go to it? Well, you can laugh, but can we just go to the verse?
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm not a dramatic person.
It's in Matthew 15, I think. Let's go.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Matthew 15. Let's go.
Yeah. Matthew 5, sorry, not Matthew 15.
Okay, great.
All right, here we go.
All right, so let's see what it says. Okay,
here we go. So it has been said, anyone who divorces his wife must give her a certificate of divorce. But I tell you, anyone who divorces his wife, except for sexual immorality, makes her the victim of adultery, and anyone who marries a divorced woman commits adultery.
Can you click the full chapter thingy?
Sure.
Thank you.
Verse 31. Let's go.
Not a big fan of the NIV, but still.
That's fine. So then, was divorce permissible?
Hold on. Yeah, that's not the right one. Give me a second.
All right. All right.
If you bear with me, I'm not. It's not a disagreement. It's because these the Gospels, as you know, have different wordings. Some with more explanatory tones than others.
Because they're plagiarized from one another. That's why.
They're not plagiarized. They were written by individual writers.
No, they weren't. That's consensus scholarship, by the way.
That's modern scholarship, which is disproving itself desperately.
Which is greater than anything Saint Irenaeus of Lyon ever said.
I disagree. Okay, that's utter garbage. I'm sure you apply that same standard to Islam.
No, I don't.
How?
Islam is online with scholarship. Christianity is on the other side.
I disagree completely. I think that it's the other way around, and you want to present it differently.
Well, that's why we're here. So.
Okay, go to Matthew 19:8-9.
That's a completely different chapter, completely different building.
But it's the same book, so it's the same author.
Yeah,
and it's
but
the
no,
same
but I
Christ.
asked about divorce though.
But can we right? And I'm
Yeah.
telling you,
So
go to Matthew 19:8.
Matthew 19:8. Okay, let's go there. Here it says, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives because your hearts were hard, but it was not this way from the beginning. That's what it says.
In other words, the standard had never changed from Old Testament.
Okay, wait, but that's not what I asked. I said, was it permissible?
It's not an issue, was it? But you're asking what the rule is.
Was it permissible?
By God? Originally, no.
By God, show me that in the Torah.
I just showed you that from the gospel.
No, show me that in the Torah. Because you
said
in the Torah, the Torah it's not allowed.
Well, no, you asked me if it was allowed in the Torah.
Is it allowed in the Torah?
Explaining why. Yes, because of the hardness of their hearts.
Okay, good.
Because the people were flawed.
Good. So that it was allowed and later no longer allowed.
No, it was originally not allowed, but the people were so rotten, God allowed it. So
okay, no. so then it was not allowed.
Right.
Then he allowed it. Then he canceled it again. That's
right, because he realized he had better people.
There you go. So that's abrogation. So you just
that's not abrogation. It's the original rule.
That's what abrogation.
Unless you're saying what Moses did was abrogation.
No, Moses didn't abrogate Moses.
No, what I'm saying is the original law of God was abrogated by Moses for divorce, and Christ was returning it to its original.
Yeah, if you're claiming that the original law, which there's no evidence for, that's
literally what Jesus just said.
Yeah. Oh my God! 1 second, man. 1 second.
Camera problems, they happen. Hope is all right.
All right. So
by the way, someone offered to donate a camera.
No, it's okay. I have a good camera. It's fine. Oh. Anyway, so you're saying if you're claiming that there's an original magical law that existed,
just true.
Right, there's no evidence for it, if that's the case. But there's an original law that existed that didn't allow divorce. Then Moses came and he allowed divorce. Then Jesus came and he took it back. Then that still would be abrogation. So that's fine.
Okay, so this list of abrogations that we're talking about that Christians need to follow, that's the Injil according to the Quran.
Yep.
Where can I find it?
Yeah, sure. You'll find that in documents like Q. You'll find that in
Q?
Matthew. Yes.
Q is just pieces of manuscripts.
No, it's not. There's no manuscripts for Q actually.
Well, we're assuming Q is,
There's no manuscripts for Q. Okay.
So how can we read what you can't see?
No, you can't see it. You want me to tell you what it is?
Q? No, I feel like you're going to say the Quran, but now you're going to be on Q, and I want to know.
I'm going to tell you exactly what the Injil is. Are you ready for it?
I am ready for it.
Right. The Injil are the oral teachings, parables, and prophecies of Christ that he makes in his lifetime he receives from God. And
so like the apostolic canon. So
let me finish. No, it's not. And when we apply our historical rigorous methodology, we could find out that the historical Christ was an apocalyptic preacher. He preached the kingdom of God to come. He had 12 disciples. As a matter of fact, the parables and the teachings found in the Gospel of Matthew, about 90% or 85% of them are Islamic in nature. And I could say Q because that represents a historical Christ.
But there is no Q, is there?
There is Q. Q is everything, a double tradition found in Matthew and Luke that we don't find in Mark, assuming the two-source hypothesis.
Wow, you know a lot about this modern biblical criticism, which is really interesting.
Yeah, if you had time studying it, you wouldn't be wasting your time being whatever you're doing now.
Well, I'm actually Orthodox, so we don't believe in any of these ridiculous modern 20th century theories. No, they're hypotheses.
Because if you had studied the New Testament text critically, you wouldn't be worshiping three gods and wasting your time.
I don't worship three gods. I worship one God in Trinity.
According to Gregory of Nyssa, then you'd have to count three gods if you count the way we count things.
I don't think Gregory of Nyssa ever confessed three gods, so that's.
I didn't say he confessed three gods. I said,
you kind of just said
I didn't say that. I said according to Gregory of Nyssa in his letter on Not Three Gods, he says that if we were to count things by the way we usually count, we would count three gods. And so we count by division in order to count one God. We count one nature by division. But that's not the way we count things. That's why Gregory of Nyssa says we should change the ridiculous habit of counting things by identity, and we should start counting things by division. So there's three men in a room. We should count one man because really there's one human nature.
Okay, well, first off, I'd love to see the quote from St. Gregory of Nyssa.
It's not a single quote. That's what he says in the whole letter. It's literally called On Not.
So this is an okay, so let's look at On Not Three Gods for a second, if you've got that much time. Because I have a feeling it's not going to say what you think it says.
Okay, well, it's just you've clearly not studied your fathers.
Well, no, I've studied them quite well. That's why I'm very confident it doesn't say what you think it said.
All right. So what analogy does Gregory of Nyssa give for the Trinity?
Let's take a look.
But you said
not three gods. Well, I have studied them, but that doesn't mean they're considering that there's thousands and thousands of pages. You haven't either. So let's not pretend claims.
I've read almost every letter of the Cappadocians.
The Cappadocians are three fathers.
That's right.
Hundreds.
That's right.
Hundreds.
But those three fathers make up the majority of your doctrine anyway. Besides Gregory of Palamas and John of Damascus, those are your most influential church fathers.
Well, I would say that they are very influential, but all of the fathers in consensus must be used to understand things.
Yeah,
it just can't. So,
that's fine.
Like I'd love to have a discussion on the Cappadocian fathers if you want to set up a time for it. I have no problem with that.
We can have it. I'm going to show you how they were all tritheists, polytheists who worship three gods.
And I'm going to disagree with you. That's why I said we could have a discussion on it separately.
Of course you are. But yeah, so how is there one God? How would you count one God?
There is only one God.
Yeah, which counting method are you using?
Counting method?
How are you counting one when there are three?
I count one God.
How? When there are three with divinity?
Three persons.
That's right.
One singular essence.
But why don't we count three gods?
They're not three gods. They're three persons in the one.
That's fine. I'm asking why can't we count three gods?
Because they're not separate from each other. They're indivisible.
Oh, nice. Are the energies separate from each other?
The energies are okay. What are you trying to say? Explain that, because the energies, the essence of God.
You believe in essence energy distinction, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Good. So, do you believe the energies are separable from one another?
What do you mean by separable?
Can they be separated from the essence?
Not completely. No.
Good. How many? Are there many energies or one energy?
It's technically it can be split into any number of things.
Oh, okay. Nice. So then
do you understand? Do you understand the difference between essence and energy?
Yes, of course. So
what's the difference?
I'll tell you the difference in a second. So separability does not mean that you count one of that type, right? Because otherwise you would count one energy of God. The energies of God are how God interacts with his creation. They are his
correct, absolutely right.
Okay? How God interacts, his love, his anger, his mercy. This is how he interacts with the world. Mm-hmm. Okay, so these are the energies of God. Okay, and Gregory of Palamas breaks that down, quite well. But anyways, you're right. So your argument was that we don't count three gods because they're not separate, but the energies are not separate. Then we don't count one energy; we count many energies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all true.
So then why the argument why would we count one God instead of three gods?
Well, because it is one God.
When
we're talking about the energies,
this is just one water bottle. I can say that.
Well, it's not true. You can. There's two of them.
How many bottle natures are there?
Bottle natures? There's only one.
Yeah. Well, so why don't we count one bottle then? If there's one.
Well,
nature.
they are of one bottle nature, but they are two bottles.
They share the same essence?
Well, I have no idea how the essence of plastic works.
What do you
However,
they have the same
they're plastic bottles. You're comparing God to plastic bottles.
No, I'm using the same principles that apply universally. So when we count things, we count by distinction, not by division. So there's two human beings. We have one human nature. We don't count one human, we count two humans. Likewise, when there's two instances of divinity, one divine nature, we count two gods or three gods instead of one God, sir.
And what happens when you're doing that with water? If you have two glasses of water, the properties of water are exactly the same in both. However, and water isn't uncountable like God.
And guess what? Water doesn't work because water and gold and steel and things of that nature are mass terms. Do you believe that God is some kind of stuff that the person shares?
No. God, I believe God is outside in his essence of everything.
Okay, good. So then it doesn't work because when we say there's two water bottles and how many waters we count, well, we count one water, but that's because water is a mass term. This is just a linguistic fix. Okay, we don't say there's two bodies of water. Okay, we don't say there's two.
You can't actually say there's two bodies of water.
No, I understand. But in your analogy, when you're saying, look, there's this and this, how many waters are there?
Well, I wasn't saying that. That's your analogy.
No, you're the one who used it. You said, what about water? You just said it. You said, what
right,
about
but you're
water?
the one who created the bottle analogy. I didn't.
Yeah, so that's a mass term. It doesn't
What does
work.
this have to do with the Trinity? It's like holding up three bottles of water doesn't prove anything.
Yeah, I'll tell you, because you have three instances of one nature, and yet you count one God. But when we have two instances of humanity, you count two humans. When we have two
because
instances
they're two beings.
Okay, then your God would be three. Then instances are beings. So then your God is three beings, three gods.
Well, he's a triune being. He has three persons in his nature.
No, well, you're asserting that. I'm saying, what justifies that? Why is it one God instead of three gods?
We believe that's what was taught through the apostles and fathers. That's why you do find expressions of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit in Scripture.
Well, no, they didn't teach that at all because there's not.
No, that's not true.
There's not a single ante-Nicene father who taught consubstantiality. Not a single one of them. Not Justin Martyr, not Theophilus, not Athenagoras, not Tatian.
If you'd like to go, you can list off the names all you want, but if you want to go through those, I don't think you actually have studied this.
Okay,
and frankly, I think you're just listing off names. That's why you mentioned Q, this fantasy hypothesis from modernist scholars.
Right.
Now you're listing off a list of fathers you didn't read. How about this? You can have a discussion on it if you want to.
You said it's a fantasy hypothesis, but it's been consensus in the 1800s. And Dr. John.
Yeah, by German liberal scholars. Okay. German liberal scholars wrote it. That's why.
Those German liberal scholars.
Well,
those German liberal scholars have given us critical value of this text more than any of your so-called Greek pagan church fathers.
I disagree. Greek pagan church fathers. How about your pagan German theologians?
Well,
you want to throw names off?
They're certainly pagan, but they were smart pagans, not like your church.
Okay, yeah, well, that's typical. Follow the smart pagans. Good job.
Anyway,
I follow the enlightened Christians. So those church fathers you call pagans, the ones that you just listed off but didn't read. I mean, we can have a discussion on it. Do you want to have this? You want to have a discussion on that or no? Not today, obviously. You're busy.
I'd love to have. I'm actually. I'm not even home. I'm traveling. But I'd love to have a discussion. How about this? I'm gonna start a live just for you, actually, tomorrow. Okay, I'm gonna start
tomorrow. Let me think. To be fair, can I have a second to think? Because tomorrow,
yes,
I think I should be able to. I think I should.